Welcome to the Steve and Cimino Says Boom Show, issue number 39.
Boom!
Hey everyone, welcome to Pop XP. And before the show starts, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications when we go live and we upload awesome new content. And don't forget, if you can, make sure to share our stream on all your social media outlets. We appreciate it, and thanks for helping us grow the Pop XP channel.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Steve and Cimino Says Boom Show, issue 39. We got the master, our occasional mascot, host, whatever, Roy Thomas in the house, and down below we got the Pop XP with the man now. Now, what's going on?
I'll tell everyone what's going on. Make sure to look below, click that subscribe button, and smash that bell to get notifications when we go live and we upload some awesome new content like this video you're watching. And gentlemen, I'm excited. I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Yeah, it's a master class. Usually me and Steve talk issues. Now we got the professor. What did they call Stan at the bottom of that intermetus? What did they call him?
Editor emeritus.
Yeah,
it means like out of merit as opposed to actually doing anything.
Yeah. Well, he got that $1 million a year for that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So Steve, what are we talking about today?
You know, we're going to be talking about John Cimino's favorite subject of all time, which, of course, is 1970s Hulk. I thought I was a Hulk fan until I met John Cimino. But this is a very particular issue, has some different cultural aspects to this issue. We can dig a little bit deeper. And we are very fortunate that we have Roy with us today, because this is a Roy issue. We are talking about Incredible Hulk 142.
Oh, now before we go into this, and Roy, before you start taking us down the road page by page and teaching us what we need to be taught, first off, everybody needs to know, if anybody saw Thor Ragnarok, they called the Valkyrie what was her fighter number 142, which was based off of this issue, which I thought was very interesting. And if you know that, and now Steve was just saying about my favorite Hulk is 70s Hulk. Yes, it is. But my favorite writer of the Hulk ever, and I know Roy can't stand this, but it's my favorite work he's done, is his Hulk. Roy, I know. Don't chastise me, but it is. Your Hulk changed my life, and it was so incredible. Pun intended.
Wow.
What do you say? First off,
Well, the first thing I say is that I didn't really like writing the Hulk.
Okay.
I was never a big Hulk reader, although, I always say, to me, when he started off, he was just an imitation of the Thing, and I liked the Thing. So both Jerry Bales and I found the Hulk less inspiring at the beginning. He became better. And I almost always wrote the Hulk about twice as fast as I wrote anything else, paying very little attention to it, but it sold better. I think it outsold the Avengers. And I know that in the course of the year or so that Herb and I worked on, I remember hearing that they had, and it was based mostly on sales of our books, although they were doing very well to understand, of course, before that they upped the print run, somewhat twice under our thing, and do as much to us as anything. So it was obviously a success, but maybe that's the reason. Maybe because I didn't try too hard. I just, Herb was there in the office.
Oh.
So I usually in those days I wrote scripts out. I wrote scripts for Avengers, and I wrote scripts for this. I wrote scripts or synopses, 2, 3, 4 pages. But I rarely wrote a script, I think, for the Hulk, especially when I was doing it with Herb, because he was right there. We'd come in and we'd sit around for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and I'd come in without an idea. Sometimes he had a little idea. Sometimes we'd kick things around. What do you feel like doing? We got any ideas? And it would just come up, and so forth. And, so that every one of these, Herb is a co-creator more than just an artist. And it's the closest thing I came to, the idealized early Stan and Jack kind of stuff, I suppose. And Herb would just go off and draw. And the nice thing was I was there 2 or 3 days a week. So if he had any questions or he ran into a dry spot, we'd sit down for another minute or two or something and talk. But usually Herb would just draw. He was a very inventive guy. And it was a lot of fun. He wasn't like the greatest draftsman, but he told a really good story. And especially during this period when you had John Severin inking him, you suddenly had a master artist drawing a really good storyteller and everything, and that made it even better than when other people were inking it. I think there's nothing any better than Herb Trimpe and John Severin together doing the Hulk or anything else.
Wow. Now, Steve, before we get into the issue, do you have any questions for him about his Hulk?
It's quite a revelation to hear that, it wasn't really one of your favorite things to do, because it doesn't. Again, it's one of those beautiful things where, once you get to a certain skill level or talent level, I guess, it just comes out and you can get it done. Where some people could probably labor for years trying to get something done and they probably wouldn't be able to do it, but yeah, it's definitely a special little era of the Hulk, So yeah, I'm really interested because obviously now, if I'm correct, this is the second appearance of Valkyrie, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So
all right,
yes,
it's the second Valkyrie, in fact.
yes. So basically, in recent years, the character has gained a massive impact, of course, because of the Thor movies. So yeah, I'm looking forward to delving into seeing exactly the reasons for the Valkyrie appearing in this issue.
Okay, so Roy, before you go into it, can you tell us the background of issue 142 and the whole purpose of writing this?
Marvel cut me a check every week or two. And in order for them to do this, I had to write something. The words had to be on a typewriter, and they had to, come out in paper and so forth. So, I sat down and since I didn't really like the Hulk, I would just try to do kind of crazy things in it. And sometimes those ideas didn't work out so well, but sometimes they were fun, like that thing where the Hulk was the golem. I like that story. Or the one where, where the Hulk and Bruce Banner got split into two people, which had never happened before. Yeah. It was just an attempt to find a way to do something different, almost a what if thing before there was a what if book, except, I would only do it for an issue or two and they get back. This is actually very near the end of my Hulk run. I only did a couple more issues after this, but of course I didn't know this when I wrote it. So I wasn't thinking of getting out of the Hulk, even though I was always ready to. And what happened is I was getting kind of desperate. The issues before then, I had done what? I had done this story with Harlan Ellison, where, he wrote a plot that I adapted, stayed up all night to dialogue it, and kept myself awake by working every single title from one of his short story collections into the dialogue of the thing. Then I came up with Doc Samson. It was based on Captain Tootsie. That was kind of a funny idea. So, and then what had happened is 6 months, a year earlier, I had, in an Avengers, I had done a story which feminists continue to denounce, I think, which is the one in Avengers with the Liberators or Lady Liberators or whatever.
Issue 83.
Yes, in which it turned out it was the Enchantress who was disguised as the Valkyrie. I just told John, to make a kind of a female Thor kind of character and so forth, which he did, the breastplates and the whole thing. And
by the way, Roy, sorry to break in, but
no.
That opening sequence where the Wasp goes in and sees and the ladies are around the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. See, Steve? Yes. I
don't care what anyone else says. If they want to give you any hassle for that, they're going to get slapped from me and John. I can tell you that.
Oh, Steve. Yes. That 2-page. And you want to know the funny thing is, I wasn't that into the girls. I always liked the male superheroes. No, I know, but that was so cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I will take a little credit. I did tell him to do the double-page spread of the characters because I wanted it to have an impact. The funny thing is, this particular, but that story,
incredible.
that story is, one that when they reprinted it or something, sometime they put in some little disclaimer at Marvel in the last few years about the attitudes being different. I don't know. There've been a few like my good friend Trina Robbins, a few. I don't remember what their beefs were. I never wanted to hear them particularly. I said it was a long time ago, 3 weeks maybe at the time when they first mentioned it. But I just said, I was just doing a story, and I thought it was time to get a bunch of women characters together. Okay, it wasn't maybe the most. I'm not a woman, but then if I can't write female characters, then no woman should ever write a male character. So let's get that out of the way right away. That kind of bull crap, I'm not going to give lip service and so forth. Otherwise everybody could only write their own particular race, creed, color, and everything else. You'd have to have 50 books of crossover in order to get one story out of. But I'm not saying I did it all that wonderfully. It was kind of a shallow story, I suppose. But hey, it's a comic book, and it didn't hurt anybody. And at the end, the Valkyrie is revealed to be Enchantress. And while that was a nice little fun ending for that story, I hadn't intended Valkyrie to be a continuing character. But once I saw the way John drew her, and there was a nice,
she was beautiful.
Well, John couldn't draw the other way. Ramita and
so
Sema,
beautiful.
They couldn't draw women that weren't beautiful. Tell them drawing ugly women, they just look at you, And I decided, well, there should be another. I want to make up a new Valkyrie, because I'm not sure why I ever let Steve Englehart make up a third one. There wasn't any reason for it, but he did it wonderfully. But anyway, I decided to make up this second Valkyrie who could be a continuing character potentially, because, as opposed to being the Enchantress, which means she already had the main identity, and I didn't want to do that. So I came up with Samantha. I love the name Samantha. About that time, in fact, I had Stan Lee's dog. Samantha was a dog of Mrs. Lee had owned, and she decided to get out of the dog business. So she gave me and my first wife, Jeannie, around that time, she gave us the little dog, Samantha, this little toy poodle that I had until she died out in LA in 1983. And I love the name Samantha. Also, one of my favorite movies is High Society with Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra. Mm-hmm. One of the last great Cole Porter things. And the middle name of the character Tracy in that movie, High Society, is Samantha, because I think Porter had written a song, I Love You, Samantha. I Love You, Samantha. So they gave her that middle name just so they'd have an excuse to use that song. But I just love the name Samantha, so I made that the name of this character. But basically, at the same time, I had fallen in love with the writing of Tom Wolfe. This is long before he ever wrote a novel, but he was like this is not Thomas Wolfe of, You Can't Go Home Again and all that, and Look Homeward Angel. This is the Tom Wolfe of the Electric, Tangerine Flake, Streamline Baby, and then, all the wonderful new journalism that he was doing. Was writing journalism like was some sort of weird novel. And he had just written an article. I think it was the article rather than the book version. He had written an article for New York Magazine, which I loved, called Radical Chic. And Radical Chic was a thing going around then in which, I know this is amazing to think, but which upper class people pretended to be really interested in the downtrodden races and everything for reasons that I feel were always dubious and suspect. But anyway, and it was kind of an unnatural pairing, but they're people, they were well-intentioned, and the most famous of these, the one he was writing about, was Leonard Bernstein, the musician, the co-creator of West Side Story, among other things, and so forth. And he was a big musical figure in New York, and his wife, I forget her name, she had a different last name, and they threw a party for the Black Panthers, who at the time were already kind of, revered by some and hated by others. But they were obviously a strange pairing. The Leonard Bernstein's on Park Avenue in their apartment, and they threw a party to benefit the Black Panthers. And so, there's a combination of these people in their, fancy clothes, and the Black Panthers, who were not going to dress up like that. They were themselves, and that's fine. They should be. And somehow or other, they were trying to come together, and it was a hilarious thing. Tom Wolfe caught it so perfectly, okay, it's kind of lambasting it, but at the same time, he makes it look like you could tell these guys kind of, Bernstein, these people, they were kind of, they were sincere, but it was just kind of a strange, ridiculous thing. And Wolfe was such a good writer, with such a photographic memory that he could remember the conversations. Because I saw later on TV David Susskind had a show where somebody who was lampooned a little in the story was talking about how Wolf had libeled him by describing him as doing this, that, jumping up and down, saying, "I want to throw a party for the Panthers. I want to throw you." And he says, and then he says, "What were you doing?" He says, "Well, I was just back there saying, I want to throw a party." In other words, he described exactly what Wolf had said. He had to realize that when he did it, it was caricature. So anyway, but I didn't want to do a thing. I didn't want to do a thing with, racial overtones or anything like that. And, it didn't make any sense in this context. So I figured, but the Hulk is green and he's misunderstood. Nobody likes the Hulk and he could use a little love too.
Yeah.
And there is, I made up, a bunch of types like the Bernsteins and so forth, as I read them and understood them. And they throw a party for the Hulk to for some reason I gave them this crazy title. They shoot Hulks, don't they?
So put the first page.
Yeah. They shoot. I gave him the title which is that movie. I don't know. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Hey, they shoot horses, don't they? Which was that Jane Fonda movie, but it had nothing to do with it. I just liked the title, so I threw it in. And but I look at it. I'm never that big on my writing on the Hulk, but I kind of like this first page. Is that because it talks about the Statue of Liberty, send your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. And I'm sorry. I was trying. And it says. We cannot help but doubt that the ever incredible Hulk was exactly the huddled mass she had in mind. I don't know. It was just, it wasn't serious writing. I was just having a little fun. I guess I was getting kind of Hulk happy after a while, and I just wanted to write something kind of nutty and everything. And, I put in there and because I had Tom Wolfe's permission. I didn't just do this. I got he had been a character. In fact, there's a footnote in there. You remember Tom Wolfe from Doctor Strange number 180, don't you? And, I got Tom Wolfe's permission to do a kind of a radical chic approach to the thing. So I credited him and he was very pleased to see it, wrote me a nice letter about it. And later on, and would have been available for more had I ever got around to it. So that's basically it. That's the
next page now.
And you got that beautiful Severin inking. Well, it's just the Hulk. But again, here's the Herb Trimpe storytelling. I mean, if there wasn't a word on this page, you'd know exactly what's going on. The Hulk is, in there, and he dives off a garbage scout. He climbs the Statue of Liberty and goes to sleep. And there's also in the second from the last panel, there's almost a little smile on his face, a little contented smile.
Oh, wait, just really quick.
That's
the Hulk climbing. Even as a kid, it was so sad. Like he's climbing just to get away from everybody. Yeah. He's climbing the Statue of Liberty. That is such a beautiful. Such a tender thing. Yeah. Herb Trimpe, unbelievable. Can I just ask you this? Did you ask him to be climbing the Statue of Liberty?
I don't remember. We talked it over. I don't think I described it as carefully as almost panel by panel. I didn't do that. What we would have discussed was that I probably. Either he or I or we together came up with the idea that he would be at the Statue of Liberty. Okay. And so forth. And, but it's up to Herb. Herb's the artist. He knows how to do that, and
wonderful, wonderful page.
But exactly how we described it, I couldn't begin to remember.
Next page. Yeah.
All right. So then at this point, it's just, setting up all the stuff. And I gave her the nice, I kind of happy with this woman, the name I came up for the wife character, Militia. I thought that was kind of a nice thing for a character who's not too nice. And Reggie is the Bernstein character. And I have this line at the beginning, here it says, we need to give one fundraising party for some socially oppressed group. The Panthers, the Great Pickers, even the Friends of the Earth, they've all been done. I was just setting up it says, but this one line, I was looking at it earlier tonight. I wonder what the hell I had in mind. It says, I always said if you could get Truman Capote to autograph a copy of The Love Machine, you can do anything. Now, there's a line from William Butler Yeats. It says, when I wrote that line, only God and I knew what it meant. Now only God knows. Well, that's basically, I don't know. The Love Machine was a book of takeoff on Hollywood. Yeah. But why Truman Capote, I do not know.
Next page now.
All right. So then you have, I guess that's little Samantha up there at the top, isn't it?
Yep.
Do a bash from my group, Women's Lib. But again, that's been done too. And it says the Hulk. I'm betting the Hulk turns out to be the biggest male chauvinist pig this side of Norman Mailer. The thing is, Stan, if Stan were looking over this carefully, he wouldn't have wanted me to do this. I could only do this in the period when Stan was not looking there, that period when he'd look at the first page and the last page at best, and let me go and maybe castigate me later if I did something he didn't like and whatever. But, so I had a lot of leeway, and I really pushed the limits, I got to admit, with this one, just because of general boredom and desire to see what I could get away with. So, basically it's just setting up, I'm Mrs. Reginald Parrington. I don't care if you're Che Guevara, with that fancy gun belt, because that was the thing. Oh, remember women took to wearing these, what do they call them, the bandolier or whatever?
Yeah, the bullets.
Gun belts.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where, Thunder came in and had that kind of a symbolic thing like that too around this time. Thunder, when I made her up and everything. So,
next page now.
Yeah. So we haven't got to the meat of the story yet. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So the Hulk, why are these crazy ones doing down there? Why don't they leave the Hulk alone? Why? It's just the Hulk being the Hulk. He's, I hate the smart Hulk. I like the dumb Hulk. Hulk smash. That's about as intelligent as he should ever be for my period. So basically, they're all worried that but these people are going in there, going to talk the Hulk into letting him give a party for him, and the Hulk has no, in the next page.
Next page now.
The Hulk, of course, has no idea what the hell they're talking about. It mentions something, I read someplace the torch of the Statue of Liberty is in danger of collapsing, which is true at the time. They needed to reinforce it. And here's the Hulk in it. So I thought that was kind of, that's my idea of, related comics or whatever. So basically, little Samantha talks the Hulk into letting them give the party for him and everything.
Next page now.
Yeah, I'll get to the meat of it as we go along here. Okay, so now she does. The Hulk is coming down. It reminded me of remember in line of the Hulk. The Hulk is Kong is climbing the Empire State Building. Remember that line in the original King Kong? Well, this is the Hulk is climbing down from the Statue of Liberty, and so forth. And
General Ross is so
General
surprised.
Ross is there. Yeah, but it's just I was trying to think if you were Leonard Bernstein or a reasonable facsimile thereof, or his daughter in this fictitious world. What would you do? You have to talk the Hulk into, you can't just walk up to the Hulk. Well, they do kind of, but you have to talk him into wanting the party. He's not going to understand what you're saying. So I was just kind of, some of this was inherent in a lot of it was inherent in what Herb and I talked about. And then when Herb did the drawings, he just followed it to its logical conclusion. The Hulk kind of in a confused state walks down, and then I'd have to come up with all the dialogue going back and forth, and I could, some of it was inherent and some of it was not, and everything. And
next page now.
Okay, so the next page. So then we finally get to the thing. They're gonna have the fundraising party, and then Samantha gets very upset because her father is taking all the credit for doing this. I have to set up the Valkyrie thing, so I have to have a discontented, angry daughter who is a malcontent. And she decides she's got to do something about this.
Next page now.
Now, this is the point where I began to really enjoy the story, this full page shot, where in the background, and it isn't established yet, but there's a drawing of Tom Wolfe. It looks very much like him as he was then at that time in 1971.
Just for the people at home, he's right above the Hulk.
He's
shoulder.
The blonde guy kind of smiling. And that's what he did in the Bernstein Black Panther party. He was just a guest at the party. He took no notes. He's not going to be seen writing things down at a party. It's all goes in there and it stays, almost like he's taking photographs. And I was kind of happy with this because, again, Herb draws this thing, but you don't know what's going on. So the Hulk says, "Where's the girl who brought Hulk here? If this is a trap, Hulk will smash you all."
He's telling him.
I like the way the woman, because these people are so ignorant. These people just, like, I'm not saying the Bernsteins as such, but all the people who give these parties says, "Isn't he adorable? He's been saying that all day." Of course, he doesn't really mean a word of it. I mean, in other words, they understand no more than Bernstein. These people probably really understand the Black Panthers or much of anything else. They have no idea of what they've got in their midst. To them, it's just a cute cause. They have this atomic bomb right there in the middle of the party. Atomic bomb, and they're
next page now.
All right, and so then I did a thing. They're talking about, and I have take off some movie titles. The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Miracles. That's actually a real movie title, and since gamma rays were important to the Hulk, I threw it in. And I Am Furious Green. You know what that came from, right?
No.
Well, see, that's a shame. You guys are so young. There was a porno movie called I Am Curious Yellow. There were 2 movies, and one was another color, and I never saw that one. But I Am Curious Yellow became very famous, so I figured I Am Curious Green would just make a nice title. It's not a porn movie, but but that was a what was Bob Hope? You had a joke about it. His I Am Curious but Yellow. That was his joke line about it. Anyway, so you have this fundraising party, and then finally we get to Tom Wolfe. The whole idea was, I told Tom I wanted.
He's in the third.
Yeah, there he is in the third panel. I should mention this. Originally, I had a very bad idea for this story. Originally, it was going to be a Daredevil issue because I was also writing Daredevil. The only reason I remember this is because I wrote it down somewhere. I saw it later, and I know where I saw it. It was in a letter to Tom Wolfe, that I was going to do it in Daredevil. But then it occurred to me Daredevil wasn't the right place at that time, but the Hulk was perfect for it. So anyway, so I have a black guy who could have been one of the Black Panthers for the Bernstein party saying, "Hey man, nobody's ever told me, what's this radical chic mean anyway?" And Tom Wolfe says, "Right now, I'm not so sure, and I made up the term, And little footnote that several people said they thought was cute. Everybody here remember neo-journalist Tom Wolfe from Doctor Strange number 180? I'm referring to a real person, as if they're this comic book character. Yeah. But Tom had made up this phrase, radical chic, for the idea that the trendy elites would latch onto some radical cause to make it look like they were really and I'm not saying they weren't sincere in their own way, and trying to do good. They're not weren't evil people. They would just latch onto it and suddenly think, we're just doing wonderful things. You can, if you feel your cause is right, you can just feel you're so wonderful just for being associated with the cause. We mentioned no other causes like
it has a new name now, Roy. It has a new name. They have a new name for that now.
What?
Yeah.
Virtue signaling.
Yes, I know. Yes, yeah, that's basically it. They want to do a little more, but it's virtue signaling, and you have a lot of that. And anyway, so I work in a reference to Jarella because she actually had green hair, and somebody's dyed it there. But and just because the stupidity of the people at the Bernstein party, I was kind of parodying the article about the Bernstein thing. All these people invited journalists like Tom Wolfe to your party. And then you're surprised that he writes about you and makes you look like the fool you are.
Yeah.
So I have this woman say, I'm so, the hostess says, "I'm so relieved the Hulk's broken almost no furniture so far. Mr. Wolfe, you aren't planning to write any of those nasty little articles of yours about my party, are you?" And he says, "Well," and so she goes away. "You'll have to excuse me a moment, dear. By the way, my maiden name was Biederman." She wants to make sure her name's well. Biederman was the name of some kind of lower middle class department store in Cape Girardeau that I kept going by. We never went in there much, but Biederman's was a store, so I thought that Peter would be right. Then of course what we have is the Women's Lib, the daughter Samantha. They've got to hold the hand that rocks the cradle should rule the world. Really real phrases from the Women's Lib movement and everything. And I even anyway, that's the end of that.
All right, next page now.
Threw in the Enchantress, because I had to make some connection between the 2 Valkyries. So I guess the Enchantress sort of zaps off her power and it hits Samantha or whatever the hell it is, And so basically she gets her powers from the Enchantress. So there was a connection between the 2 Enchantresses. It's a little far-fetched, but, it's a comic book, So she goes wandering off and she's going to get vengeance, and now she's going to have the power to do it.
Next page now.
Yeah. Well, here you have the first this is during that period when they would turn one page or 2 so they could keep the numbering the same. So you have a half a page story in which, she says, I guess, her own version of Shazam, which is the name of the word Valhalla, which is just a ridiculous phrase. And then, so
next page now,
she gets zapped and she becomes Samantha Perring, the vengeful Valkyrie. So she looks identical to the one who was the Enchantress, but now there's a real human being in there, which I thought was much more interesting.
Next page now.
This is the weirdest page in the thing. This is my Jules Pfeiffer cartoon, basically, in here. Jules Pfeiffer would draw in the Village Voice and different places these cartoons. It was just like one character standing around talking for 6 panels, saying something, and there'd be a little tiny punchline at the end. And I decided to do that, by talking about just a guy who talks about all the different things he tried. And then he won the state lottery, which is kind of ridiculous. But the funny thing is, you know who that is? And in the background, the Hulk is trying to grab food. You see it?
Yeah.
All the food. So finally, he misses the food. finally he just picks up the waiter type
That's
guy.
Steve, that's
and
Steve up
and he shovels all the
that's Steve at the buffet when he's hungry.
Yeah. Again, I the general idea, I think Herb and I worked out that page. I mean, the general idea that as a specific page, that was a specific page I wanted in there. I don't, the general idea, I don't think we worked out panel by panel, but the idea would be he was trying to get fed and finally just grabs the guy and so forth. And in the meantime, I just have this kind of shallow guy talking about like what a wonderful genius he is, except that he won all his money in the lottery, or something. But this was a kind of an offbeat page. But the funny thing is, you know who that guy is?
No,
that's actually an almost photographic likeness of a guy whose name appeared in many Marvel comics and who was a comic artist at various times, Tony Mortallaro.
Oh,
you'll see Mortallaro worked at the back of a lot of Spider-Mans because he assisted Romita on them. He drew one of the most infamous of the stories. One of his panels is actually in Seduction of the Innocent, and everything. I think that might be the one with where the woman's crotch is in the shoulder of some guy trying to do something like that. But anyway, that was a famous story. So Mortallaro at this stage was a production guy, and he would do freelance work with John. So we used him as the model for just because he was around. Yeah. He was in there. I think he was doing paste ups and things like that, and for the reprint books and so forth. So we made him this so that if anybody ever wants to know what Tony Mortallaro looks like, that's pretty close.
Next page now.
So then we go on to, I'm throwing in the names Bergdorf, Goodman, and and things like that. Now they're all bidding the money that they can have, and so they give the Hulk money. Well, what does the Hulk know about money except that it's green like him? He knows nothing, so he just scraps of paper. He just throws them on the floor at his feet. So they've raised this money for this guy who has no concept of what money is.
Next page now.
And about this time, we have to get some action in this story. After all, we haven't had anything happen in the story yet, except a bunch of people talking. Stan was going to say, where's the fight? Where's the fight? So up against the wall, male chauvinist pig. That's that famous line of from A Million Marches at the time. She comes in and she's ready to take vengeance and so forth, and so they start fighting. And
Hulk recognizes her.
Yeah, he realizes that she looks different now, though, So, but she starts fighting him. So Hulk has, no alternate fight back. And again, the thing I had Herb draw a picture of Tom so he could comment on it a little bit. He says, making a quick estimate of the damage caused in the first 5 seconds of this confusing little scuffle, plus a rough calculation of how long it can last before either side sues for a just peace, I'd compute that the radical chic season for the year 1971 just ended on the Upper East Side. This party is
fantastic.
The money's been thrown on the floor, and the Hulk is tearing up the rest of the
next
furniture.
page now.
Okay, the Hulk wouldn't hit a girl, but he will throw her around a little bit. He pulls the rug out from under her to smash her, and so they just, the wife is down there. Well, Reggie, that's another fine mess you've gotten us into. How do we get them out of here? And the matter becomes academic because the whole building collapses and they fall out. And then, and this is the thing you hate so much, right? When Hulk is going to fight her and she
now hold on,
she touches his neck.
So the Hulk just wants to take off, but look, Steve.
All right, now
Niall, look at this. I gotta just tell before Roy goes on. This always bothered me when I was a kid. The Hulk just wants to get today I was yelling at Roy about it. Okay, here's the Hulk who can take bazooka shells and maybe an atomic bomb. She comes up to him and she presses a pressure point on his shoulder or on his collarbone above it or whatever.
It's just the right touch.
And makes and knocks him out. I have a problem with that.
You can have a guy who's tremendously strong. He could still be taken out if you touch just the right pressure point.
With a guy that can read. Oh, God. Well, all right. Next page.
It's a comic book.
Look,
all
next
right.
page now.
And in some ways, I was thinking it was so ridiculous. I didn't want her to be able to beat him, and yet I wanted her to do something. So I thought it would just be kind of, maybe stretching credibility, but I think it makes a little sense for her to be able to do that. Now, maybe she wouldn't have let him. He wouldn't have let her touch that point next time, but she's kind of sneaked up on him and did it. Okay, so then we're on the next page. This is just more, a feminist. This may be I don't know, some of this dialogue. I did a Hulk book. I'm certainly not trying to bash Marvel for this. I like Marvel, but I did a collection of Hulk books, Hulk stories that I either just come out from the Folio Society in England, from the early Hulk stories through latest, about 300 pages of what I consider the best. And I have John and 4 or 5 other people all submit ideas, especially for the later stories I'm less familiar with, and then I read them all and figure it out. But I wanted to have a story or two of mine in it because, they were, fairly popular. And I had that little 9-page story I had to do overnight. Heaven is a Very Small Place. That was a backup story that was just like done to fill 9 pages real fast. And I was at the time thinking of having one other story of mine in there I think this was one of the story I wanted to use, and Marvel would not approve its use in this Best of Hulk stories.
He couldn't use this issue.
They wouldn't give me any reason. They just said they couldn't be used. I thought, well, is it the women's lib thing? Is it because it's the radical chic thing might be looked on as, they might look back to the original cause of it and think it's racist. Nobody would ever explain it to me. They just forbade me to use it. And I got really annoyed, but I figured, well, it wasn't like that story had to be in there. I was happier having just Heaven is a Small Place. So I threw in some Jerry Conway or Len Wein, story that was quite good. And I'm very happy to not have it in. But I really did.
But Roy, talking of people getting annoyed, I'm sure that John Cimino loves that little first panel there where Valkyrie is pulling the Hulk by his hair. I know that he loves that scene.
Well, once he's knocked out, that's nothing then.
We're not going to talk about this right now because something happens though that Roy does fantastic, and he didn't even mean to do it to what we're coming to it. Okay.
So this pretty well ends, except of course the Enchantress is still trying to exercise influence. She's trying to over the thing, so she's going to have, because I didn't want to make that Valkyrie into a real villainess. So having the Enchantress kind of control her was my way of not doing that, because by this time, as opposed to when I had done the Avengers story, I had it in mind that the Valkyrie might become a continuing character,
right?
Which she did, even though I let Steve make up a 3rd version because he wanted to.
Next page now.
The reason I'm turning pages, I'm doing this in my bound volume, everything to look at it. Okay, so she throws the Hulk off and so forth, but
okay,
but at the bottom he's still alive. So
okay, but this is something that I love.
Yeah.
Wait a second, and I thought when I was a kid that after all that and all that radical chic and all that pro-woman stuff, the Hulk ends up a male chauvinist pig, because look at that last panel, and the Hulk says she can't believe that the Hulk is alive because she felt bad by throwing him off the Empire State Building. And the Hulk says the best thing. Yes, girl, the Hulk lives. Nothing can harm Hulk, least of all the hand of a woman. And I thought the joke was, after all that, and the Hulk's trying to try to be the good guy, he's a male chauvinist pig. No, I was wrong.
Well, maybe that's why Marvel forbade the story to be published. I don't know, because he does say that on the next page. Hulk still doesn't want to fight a woman. So
right,
there
he
is
never
that
wanted
aspect.
to hurt her.
But the thing is, I mean, those are real attitudes. Those were real attitudes that people had. You can't just wish them away by saying they're inconvenient and you wish nobody had ever had them, because they did. I mean, there were people who would say no woman can hurt me. I mean, maybe a lot of bad stuff comes out of it, but the fact remains these are real attitudes, real feelings people had. So why couldn't I put them into the mouth of the Hulk, who's a guy who's kind of pure emotion anyway, And I can't understand why anybody would object to that. But there are some feminists, I guess, who didn't like either one of my 2 little Valkyrie stories.
So this one is still controversial.
But I think they're crazy in this case. I think that these were both stories that advanced the cause, especially, the other one was a group of women heroes for one of the first times that was ever done, probably one of the few. And this story has a brand new female heroine who will be back again, the Valkyrie, who actually sort of beats the Hulk on his own terms and things. And all they can think about is the fact that he said 1 or 2 things that were real attitudes of people at the time that maybe they didn't want to hear. Well, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to hear either, but you got to listen to it because people say it.
Right.
What else is on here? Let's see. All that happens then is, I guess the Enchantress kind of, takes away the power. So you have Samantha weakened,
but you still see the spear at the very end.
Yeah, the spear is still there, so that the idea was the Valkyrie may return, But in the meantime, nobody, by this time, Bruce Banner's identity had been revealed as the Hulk, but she doesn't recognize him because who knows what a Bruce Banner looks like. So when he wanders off, she doesn't even realize that he was the Hulk, and he certainly he's kind of doesn't remember enough to remember that he fought her in that other form. So it's just a typical Hulk story. At the end, everybody wanders off and doesn't know what happened. And Roy goes on to perhaps write a more traditional story next month, you know. But Tom Wolfe liked this. Tom Wolfe wrote me a letter. I lost the first letter he wrote, but he wrote these letters with a very stylized hand and all kinds of cartouches, you know, like the old ovals and things that they use in the hieroglyphics of ancient Egypt to surround the name of pharaohs. They would put these boxes around, they call cartouches and things in French. And he would write these letters with just like that, you know, and everything's underlined. It's just as dramatic as the weirder stuff in his writing. And he wrote this letter about now that he's been in the another Marvel comic, you know, he's now a real person again, and you know, and he was being facetious, but you know, he was very happy to do it, and he was very happy to be, you know, like he's a considerable person again now that he's been in the Hulk. And I think he got a kick out of the idea that, you know, Radical Chic could be twisted into the Hulk, you know.
Okay, Steve, what do you think?
That's it.
You know, it's been a while since I've actually taken a look at this issue in its entirety. And what strikes me right now is the draftsmanship right here of Herb Trimpe. It's beautiful work. Mm-hmm. He's having to do a lot more panels. There's a lot, you know, he's doing some realistic, real pieces of architecture. And it just comes off as just a beautiful piece of work. He's having to draw much more panels. There's a lot more dialogue going on. It's not just like fighting a huge monster in a volcano. There's a lot going on, and the angles and the craftsmanship. This is a beautifully drawn issue. Beautiful. And again, as we were halfway through, I just kept looking at the art, going, I don't remember it being this good, this impressive. Yes. So again, it's a beautiful thing. It's a great flashback. There's some, obviously, this behind the scenes information. I was totally unaware of a lot of this stuff, of course, you know, because this is way before my time, Roy. Way before.
When you read it now, do you know what Radical Chic is, or
when I first read it, I did not know what it was. I did not know what it was, and so again, it's just another beautiful educational.
I'm sure a lot of our readers in 1971 didn't know either. Some of the older ones did. The younger ones.
Well, now a lot of our watchers from 2022 are going to have a complete education, because now they're going to know Radical Chic and virtual signaling, and they're going to go, ooh, okay, so let's go all the way back to 1971. But yeah, definitely an eye-opening experience, and again, just a beautifully drawn issue, beautifully crafted.
Go ahead now.
Yeah, I appreciate the risk you took, you know, knowing that you were going on a sensitive topic of the times and really incorporating that into that story. You know, a lot of books that I've read from the era didn't go that extreme with, you know, an actual realistic environment that was going on. And the way you married everything into the Hulk story and all of that, it really is phenomenal. Again, paired with the artwork that Steve was just talking about. I mean, it is a phenomenal issue. It's a shame it wasn't put in that book.
Yes.
I think Herb, I can only guess, he never said this, but I can only think, looking at it compared to the other Hulk issues where he told a good story, that because there were specific things that he had to do. I mean, he had to do that Pfeiffer-esque type page, and he had to, you know, do this basically cocktail party, you know, with the Hulk in the middle of it, and do different little panels and different things. I think it was, whether it wasn't intended to be a challenge for Herb Trimpe. I didn't come up with a story saying, you know, this will give Herb a challenge. I was wanting to do this particular story, and I'd have done it with whatever artist, you know, happened to be doing it. But I think it sort of challenged Herb. He probably, you know, had to think about it a little more than the average Hulk story. And as a result, since he was a bright guy, a talented guy, he came up with a really great way to tell the story. And then you put that Severin inking over that, and you know, you really have a beautiful art job. And the more I think of it, the more I think maybe it should have been in that book. But anyway, that's all right.
Now, my review for a second. First off, this is how well I know these two guys, Roy. I knew exactly what Steve was going to say, and I knew exactly what Niall was going to say. That's what you guys were going to like about it. That's funny. Perfect. But I want to just say, as I talked about this before, I'm going to, Roy, close your ears. If you want to get embarrassed, I don't want to hear it. All right? Be your modest self, but be your modest self on your own time.
I'll just sit here and contemplate my my adamantium T-shirt.
Okay, but this story is what I always said. First of all, Stan Lee could never write this story. Second,
He wouldn't want to.
no. Well, but I don't think he could have. And number two, this is what I always talked about, sophisticated Stan. Roy could put these characters in such a way that you can read that one way, but it also has a deeper meaning. When you're telling us about these pages, do you notice how every panel or everything Roy is saying, his dialogue has deeper meanings? Whereas like this was from this movie. They shoot the Hulks, don't they? You were just taking stuff from pop culture at your time, and you were starting to integrate it in the book that you didn't really need to know that. But if you do know that, then you get it's almost like oh my God, that's where he got it from. That is where this is the type why you revolutionized comic book writing. You were the second guy. You were the guy that did that. Yet you got the character of the Incredible Hulk perfect. The character of the Enchantress perfect. The characters of all those people perfect. You told a Marvel story, but yet it had such depth that even a genius like Tom Wolfe would respect that. I don't know, especially back then, if there's any writer that can match that. I think that book, that comic, and if anybody went through this whole thing and got his teachings on what he was saying on of telling you, it's a master class of a master writer writing with that fanboy enthusiasm. I'm sorry, that is absolute genius. When you see
I
how
agree.
It is so.
I'm a minority view, but yeah, I like the issue.
There's not even comics written today that is that deep. Think about what he did, and it's still so radical that we couldn't even include it in a Hulk issue, a best of Hulk issue today, because Roy wanted it in the book. All the people, right? How many other people? I wanted it in the Hulk book.
I never tried. I mean, granted, one of them is you, but I never tried to influence you, and a couple other people, 3 or 4 other people, and at least 2 or 3. It got more votes than most stories, but I couldn't use it, and everything. But on the other hand, as I said, they have a different set of interests. They're worried about, I mean, you put anything out nowadays, you can get attacked before the ink is dry. You're attacked on Twitter or something like that because you did something insensitive. And I think they're being a little cautious. And I didn't fight them on it particularly because I felt, it's not like it's inevitable that it has to be in there. It's not like out of the hundreds and hundreds of Hulk stories written, this one has to be one of the 10 or 12 in there. But I just felt excluding it. It's not that it had to be in there. I just felt excluding it arbitrarily. And I just feel it was an arbitrary. Nobody could come up with a good enough reason, whether it had to do with racism, sexual attitudes. Nobody could. First of all, writers just write, right? They write, and later on, people come along and decide, well, this was that kind of writing, and that was that kind of writing. But basically, writers should be free to write what they want to write. Now I have to, when you're doing a comic book or any kind of thing like that for a publisher like Marvel or DC, you're a hired gun in essence. So you basically have to write what they want you to write or what they will let you write. I was, kind of pushing it a little bit, trying to write something that I wanted to write and just hoping they wouldn't mind too much. I don't think we got a lot of complaints. There might've been 1 or 2 little complaints at a time. It's really more the passage of time where all of a sudden, everybody who lived before, before 2015 was, a racist, a misogynist, this, that, every little thing that could be interpreted in a bad way is interpreted in a bad way, as if everybody was evil until 20 minutes ago when I was born, And that's the insanity of today's world.
But I want to tell you, anybody that just heard this, go back and read that story again with the new eyes, with like a new set of ears and a new pair of eyes, that how Roy said it, and you'll see the genius of it. Not many people could ever write that comic. And you threw in that little cartoon of the Hulk trying to, like, that didn't even have to be there, but it, Roy, that was fun. Yeah. It was, and it's nothing to him. And I get that because he's just being a writer that writes, but that one issue right there. And the reason why I wanted him to read that story, not just because it was the Hulk, but because it was an absolute one storied issue of pure genius.
Well, I don't know about that, but it is the Hulk story of which I'm the proudest. I like that little 9-pager, that Heaven is a very small Hulk or whatever. ball place thing with nice little story. But of all the various Hulk stories that I ever wrote, this is certainly, one that I liked more than most. So it was kind of, I hated to see it frozen out of the book, even though it didn't really have to be in there. I don't want to run down Marvel because they have their own interests and everything, and so forth. And I was able to fill it with some other story that might have even been equally
which was
good.
silly. All right. So in ending, Steve, any last words about this?
It's again, I love getting into the weeds, getting into the knowledge. And this show has been built from the ground up to facilitate this. So when people are watching, they're learning, and they're like, wow. And that means, as you said, John, they may take a look at this issue, read it with a whole new understanding, and
well, they may go for my throat.
well, I think mainly, again, we don't have any power over, ignorant people or people who are just uneducated. But serious people, again, the good thing about this is that, I think this show attracts serious comic fans, people who want to know the full details from the people who are there, first-hand information. So again, this is another one of those episodes where I have learned a lot, and I know that a lot of our fans who are watching our show are going to be like, wow, I had no idea about that. So yes, another great episode. Thanks, Roy.
And Niall, I know Niall loves it. Believe me, Niall loves the political and the controversy. He loves it. Go ahead, Niall. What do you
I
got to
didn't.
say?
I just did it because I wanted to do the story. I was not interested in political controversy at all.
But Niall loves this. He wants to wear those.
He's a
bullet
radical.
belts.
He's a rabble.
Yeah, he likes the bullet belts. Go ahead, Niall. What do you got to say?
I enjoy the good fight. I enjoy defending the medium. But just to actually touch base though, just on the genius of the writing, that's where it's great, with Roy coming in and writers after him, and even during the time you're writing, is a more cultured writer that are more influenced by other media, movies, film, television, books, other stuff. And then when you're bringing those nuances into your writing, that's where the reader who does catch those small little details really appreciate what you're putting on that paper. And that's kind of the difference I think you see in that evolution of what John was talking about, with Stan and them writing these great stories and things like that. And then you're getting Roy in, who's just getting deeper and diving in more intellectually while still giving you that same escapism and action. There's so much to be said for that. And unfortunately, in today's books, I'm seeing less of that in the mainstream. I'm seeing a lot of it on the independent side, but that is always a key to a great story.
And Roy took a chance. Like that's what writers don't do today. They don't take those chances. They want to stay in those lines and they want to stay safe.
Stay in the safe
Probably
zone.
First have a conference too, right? I mean, the thing is, they everything that comes out nowadays, I get the idea is it's been conferred on first and agreed, and they know where they're going for 10 or 12 issues before they write the first issue, because they got to collect it into a graphic novel at the end, so they know where it's going.
Yep.
And I can understand that. That's what you do with a movie. You need a script in advance. But what I really liked was the seat of the pants kind of writing, and it led us down some blind alleys sometime. But sometimes you just get an inspiration. You'd want to do something. I mean, nobody was asking me to do this. Stan would have asked me or told me not to do it, I'm sure, if I had told him. I don't remember ever any discussion with him, pro or con, about it. But, if I had gone in and said I wanted to do that, I'm not sure he would have, said yes. And he'd have been a little dubious because he thought, because Sam was always trying to walk a middle road,
right.
Whether it was the Vietnam War or whatever, he was always trying to find a way to walk the middle road, and not offend either side. And I mostly did that too. But Radical Chic was just something I loved so much. I mean, I already liked Wolf before, and I thought this was such a brilliant thing. And it was nonfiction. It wasn't even something he made up. It was just something he observed, a real phenomenon, the Radical Chic parties, and so forth. And so I just thought it'd be kind of fun to take that and do it with a Marvel, character. And I'm so glad that for whatever reason, I got rid of the idea of doing it as a Daredevil comic, where I guess it could have worked, Matt Murdock as a lawyer get involved, this, that. But I think it works so much better because instead of it being Matt Murdock involved in a Radical Chic situation, it was the Hulk who is the Radical Chic situation, just like the Panthers were, and once I saw that, it was just a lot of fun to do. And as I look back on it now, I think God, did I actually write that? It's so off the wall, and it's not whether it's good or bad, but it's there anyway.
In ending, there's a reason why from 1969 to 1980, nobody won Best Writer as many Best Writer awards or was nominated as the runner-up for Best Writer than this guy right here. He ushered in that new generation. You won it 4 times and you were nominated 3 in that 10-year span. Unbelievable.
Well, that's because Stan was retiring.
Right, unparalleled. See, can't let him take that away.
So I had less competition.
Nobody did that. Nobody even came close. Chris Claremont only won 2. And this is by the readers at that time.
Chris did a little better in the 80s.
No, overall. No, see,
well,
I know I don't want to compare, but I'm just saying this is what happened. So, Roy, it was an honor having this on record. Having this on record for future people to watch.
I'm not sure that's a good idea, Mar.
Well, maybe it'll teach people to take.
There's a lot of people might not like it, and everything, but it's just a comic story I wrote. Even if it was the most offensive thing in the world, which I don't think it is, but even if it was offensive or wrong in some ways, people should remember, even if they didn't like it or think it's sexist, this and that, but remember, it was written over 50 years ago. I'm not necessarily exactly the same person. I wouldn't write exactly the same lines. If I did this story over, I might do it better. I might do it worse. I'd probably do it rather differently. But the horrible thing now is people want to dredge up something that somebody did 20, 30, 40 years ago and hold it over their heads because it's not the way things are done now. It's as if there's no time but the present, and that's not true. The past is always there, just like the future is,
But Roy, I think that there's a possibility that you can, that some people will take things the wrong way. And I think you also answered the question as to why the story did not appear in that book, because obviously when they were going over the story, they were like, well, wait a minute, this guy's, taking the piss out of, virtual signaling, which we're into. So we're not going to have that. But if we just have a couple of people who start to investigate Tom Wolfe, that would have never have known his name.
Yep.
It's because of your work and because of this show. So they may investigate and their horizons may be opened up far more. And let's say, there may be 1 or 2 people who may be angry and frothing at the mouth, but there may be some other people there that you completely expand their mind.
Well, I hope so. Just a little.
So in ending this episode, I'd like to thank Steve, Niall, and Mr. Thomas for I tell people, go read that issue and you're going to see the depth of it. It's incredible. And thank you, Roy, I have to admit, for giving me.
And send all hate letters to John in Boston. But I want to thank you for having me on and allowing me. But I'm supposed to be the co-host. I don't even get my own screen. I got to share it with this guy in the hoodie over here.
All right, Steve, we got Mighty Mystic Mjolnir. Get us out of here.
Boom.
Boom.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on Pop XP. If you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications when we go live and we upload some awesome new content. Also, don't forget to head on over to Twitter and follow us at the Pop XP and over on Instagram at the Pop XP. Thanks again everyone, and we'll see you soon.